Page 84, Tractate Cירובין, 13 lines from the top of the page. תנן חוליית הבור והסלע גבוהין 10 למרפסת, פחות מכאן לחצר. So remember we have the machloket, the disputation between the Rav and Shmuel we discussed yesterday. And we said that is a difference between two type of people. One group of residents that live here and basically using this balcony. You have another group of people that are here. Now let's think together. What's the real disputation? How each group is going to use. The residents that live here, it's called tashmisho beshilshul, which means they are using this chuliyat habor, this part. If you look carefully how they pull out from that pit, they basically lowering it down. You see this string? They're lowering it down. The other group, when they need to pull out, they need to pull out by throwing. It's called zrika, tashmisho bezrika. They're throwing it. Now, this part of the pit is 10 handbreadth. Now let's think together. What makes sense? Which group of residents we said that they can use? So obviously we said that we're using the group that it's much easier for them. You remember we talked about the group that it's have an easy access, direct access, and it's easy. So it's called tashmisho benachat. It's easy to use it. So we basically go by the easy to do, which is the people in the balcony. They need just to lower in order to use it. Okay? These people, it's high for them, it's 10 handbreadth. They need to throw the item in order to use it. So basically this is a proof for Shmuel that he said that the use is beshilshul, by lowering it, that tashmisho benachat, it's easy to use it. Amar Rav Huna, leotam hadarim bemirpeset. That's apply to literally refer to whom? To those who live in the apartments that open directly onto the balcony. So now this is, by the way, the source. All the mefarshim said that it's applied not to every balcony, but it's specifically for balcony that you have shurat dirot, you have several residents there, and it changed accordingly. So now the Gemara rejected that. They have issues with that. They said, Teinach Sela. One of the examples the Mishnah used is a rock. So if you talk about the rock, so the people who live in a balcony, so it's easy for them to use. They have an easy access because it's the surface is more or less level with the balcony itself. But if you talk about bore is like a pit or cistern. Okay, so what the Mishnah said that the people in the balcony can use the same manner. Mai ikale meimar. So what are you going to say? Because here, when you need to use this water, the water in this cistern is what? It's lower than the balcony. So what happened then? So it can be reached only by lowering the bucket down to it. Clear?
Yes.
Good. But if you said so, so how you tell me that the cistern is conveniently used by the resident of balcony, but not by the resident of the courtyard? So the Gemara said, Amar Rav Yitzchak bred Rav Yehuda. Now we're going to the next picture. And he responded and he said, guess what's happening? Hacha bebo melea mayim askinan. He says, guess what's happening? Look at this picture from Orot Adaf, picture 280. they have a water. You see a little blue here?
Yes.
This is the water. So he said, this cistern is filled of water. Now what happened? What's the difference if it's a field of water? Because it's reached the level of the balcony, you see, it's right on the nose. So, and the bottom of that was is 10 handbreadth or more from the heights of the balcony. So even people who live here using the shilshul, the lowering it. So now, people in the balcony, they are within the 10 handbreadth. Okay? Now, they just carry the water, right? And it's closed, so it's proof to whom? To Shmuel. Now, during the Shabbat, if the people here needs to take water, that's the way they access. Okay? Veha chasra. What is veha chasra? Guess what? If you're going to pull out water, what's going to happen to that cistern filled of water? They're going gradually to lose the water as what happens is the liquid near the surface is drawn out. So you have less and less water during Shabbat. So even you tell me at the first step, the water is reached easily and you can pull out the water. But eventually, the only way to reach the water will be by lowering the bucket into the cistern. So the Gemara responds, Keivan dechi malya sharia ki chasra name sharia. So the Gemara says, since it is permitted to draw water from the cistern when it's full, it is likewise permitted even when it is lacking. So they said, basically, the whole idea of Ben Hashmashot at the time of the twilight is the time that we allow. If they said, they used the term, we said it in page 17, because ho'il v'utra utra, which means because you're allowed to do it at the early part of the Shabbat, the Ritva said, so we follow that rule that it's allowed the entire Shabbat. So therefore, here too, they say that even during the Shabbat, they have less water, but because originally speaking, when they started, they have plenty, it's filled, then it's already okay. We go by the twilight's time. So the Gemara rejected, said, Hadraba, quite the contrary. Keivan dechi chasra asira, because you reduce the amount of the water, it reduced during Shabbat. So, according to Rav, all the people that live in a balcony can no longer use it. Why? Because the only way for them to pull out the water is to lower the bucket to the cistern. So in that sense, halachically speaking, there is no difference, according to Rav, between throwing it or lowering it. Okay?
Yes.
So they said, Ki malya name asira. So they said, if that's the case, so it should likewise be prohibited even when it is full. So Tosfot explains that there is a concept that's called davar hanital b'Shabbat eino mema'et, which means that because it's something that you're taking during Shabbat and it was pre-planned, it's not considering for our halachic discussion that it's reduced, that it changed the status. And Ritva elaborated, he said that anything that during the twilight time, בין השמשות, it was ready for use and we accepted, so it's already, when it's כשנתמעט, when it's reduced, the people in the balcony, then basically they need to lower it, and therefore we can say that we allow to lower it for the people in the balcony. So basically the word of Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Rav Yehuda rejected. So Abaye come up with a new idea, and he said, Ela amar Abaye hacha bevo melea peirot askinan. He says, you know what happened with this cistern? It's filled of what? Filled of produce, like fruits. So the upper produce is near the balcony. So they said, wait a second, if you tell me that, the achasri, people is going to take some of those produce during Shabbat, and they're going the same story. So the Gemara said, no, betivla. Betivla meaning that it's untightened produce. As you know, that produce, that fruits that you're not tied, so you are not allowed to use them. So therefore, you cannot carry them in Shabbat. So it's forbidden to eat even for the Kohanim. Now, since we're not allowed to do Trumot U'Masrot, to take a tithe on Shabbat, so therefore, any fruits that not make the Ma'asrot, the tightened, before Shabbat, you cannot use it on Shabbat. It's called Muktzeh, it's set aside, and you cannot carry them the same as all the other Muktzeh. So, so Daikanami, Diktani. So the same way we interpreted our previous discussion with a cistern that filled of water, that is not, in our discussion, not going to be reduced by amount of water during Shabbat, Diktane, because we learn in the Mishnah together with the rock, Dumya de Sela, that the cistern is the same as a rock, because this type of cistern that is not going to reduce the amount of water, so you can use it for the upper part. Shma Mina, that's the way you learn from this, that this is the correct explanations. So now they ask, if that's the case, so why did the Mishnah need to use both citron and a rock? It's enough to say one of them. Tzricha, the Gemara said, is a reason for that. דאי אשמעינן סלע, דליקה למגזר, אבל בוא לגזור, זימנין דמליה פירות מתוקנים. So he said, if you tell me that it's only a rock, so it's only relate to that balcony, so you may think that that rock, we put this decree that people in the balcony should not use, which means that people in the balcony have an access and allowed to use it. However, if you have a cistern, bowl, that is filled of produce that carry a tevel, that it's untightened produce, we put a decree. Why? Because sometimes you may say that that cistern is carried fruits or produce that was tightened. So then people cannot take it. People in the balcony cannot take it. Why? Because during Shabbat, what's going to happen? They're going to have less produce. So they said, tzricha. So that's the reason we need to mention both rock and cistern. Now the Gemara tried to bring a conclusion for this disputation between Rav and Shmuel from another Braita. Tashma. Come and learn. אנשי חצר ואנשי עלייה ששכחו ולא ערבו. Okay, let's see the picture. People who live in the first floor, that it's open to the yard, and people that live the second floor, they forget to do עירובי חצרות together. So they said, אנשי חשר משתמשים בעשרה התחתונים, אנשי עלייה משתמשים בעשרה העליונים. The people in the yard using the bottom, and the people in the second floor using the highest part. כיצד? How they do it. So they explain, זיז יוצא מן הכותל למטה מעשרה לחצר. So here you see a picture number 281. Everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay. This is the wall. And you have large protrude that come out for the wall. And here is the size. You see 10, 20. It's a 10. You see the difference between people who live here and people at the bottom. So he said, if you have this type of situation, so the ledge protrude from the wall below 10 hand breadth from the ground. It's used for the resident of the courtyard, but the protrude above the 10 hand breadth is used for the residents of the upper story. You see how? Both using this, but this is b'shilshul, this is by lowering, this is bezrika, by throwing. And he said, so he can, זיז היוצא מן הכל למטה מעשרה לחצר, למעלה מעשרה לעלייה. Right? So Rashi explained מתחילת הטפח העשירי, from the beginning of the, so because שבין עירובין, between the 10 heights to the 10 bottom, it means this one throw and this one lower. So they said, hacha the beine or beine asu. So basically Rashi said that that's the beginning of the 10 hand breadth. Okay? And the whole building, it's high more than 20 hand breadth. Okay, that's the assumption. So they said, ha de veine o veine asu, which means whatever it's the ledge situation between this and between the other, which means in between the courtyard and the upper story, is prohibited, which means you have the middle section, the status of a place that can be used by one set of residents by lowering and by the other sets of the resident by throwing. So it means that both are prohibited. That's according to the opinion of Rav, opposite in Shmuel. So Rav Nachman rejected it. Amar Rav Nachman bekotel 19 askinan. He says no, the whole wall has 19 handbreadth high. So you don't have the rules of 10 and 10. V'ziz yotze mimenu. You have the ledge protrude outside of it. למטה מעשרה לזה בפתח ולזה בשלשול. So if it's below the 10 hand breadth, for this one is בפתח, it's the entrance, and the other set of residents is only by throwing. So it means, he said למעלה מעשרה לזה, בפתח לזה, בזריקה. So you say above 10 breadth for this set residents as an entrance, and for that set of residents by throwing. So it means you don't have a middle area between the 10 hand breadth for the residents of the. So therefore, you can use it as a proof in regard to this disputation between Rav and Shmuel. 84b, Tashma, שתי גזוסטראות, זו למעלה מזו, עשו לעליונה ולא עשו לתחתונה, שתיהן אסורות עד שיערבו. Water. You have this whole wall, and you have gzuztraot. You have the, it's called, what they said in English there? they have some type of extension, something like wood outside. Okay? Anyway, the residents here build this so they can draw water. You see how? And the residents here build this. Now, if you look carefully, what exactly happened? It's not, Rashi said, it's not equal one to the other, but they have within the forehand breadth to the others. So this one needs to lower, and this one need to do what? Throwing and lowering. Okay?
Yes.
So the idea is they make this hole, and therefore you have to have an Eruv between them, because if you look carefully, they are basically dependent. They make hole in order to draw on water, so they need each other. So they have to make an Eruv between them in order to use it. But Rav Ada bar Rava rejected it, and he said, Amar Rav Ada bar Rava beva'im nei tachtona derech halyona lemalot. Rav Ada bar Rava said, you know what happened? The people, this is a Maorot picture 283. The people in the lower part needs to use the higher part to draw on the water. So, since they located in the upper part of the balcony, so they draw the water, both set of residents gain access to the water by lowering, because this one, you see this little extension, these people needs to go here in order to draw on the water, so everyone use this part. Abaye said, another way, כגון דקיימים בתוך 10 דהדדי, which means it's always crucial, the 10 hand breadth, and he said the lower part and the upper part, the distance between the two is below the 10 hand breadth, which means within the domain of the same part. So the whole prohibition is because he doesn't have the 10 hand breadth, so therefore they are equal in control, they drawing the water, so it makes no difference if they make the partition to the higher part or to the lower part, and regardless you cannot use them to the one they make the partition. So he said velo mibaya kamar. So now you have a problem, how basically you use it. So I explain in my book Biurei Klomar Berashi al Hashas. So the problem is that velo mibaya kamar, that it's like something missing in our sugya. What exactly involved here? So the tour Siman Shinun Hey, the code in the tour 355, and the Bet Yosef explained it, that velo mibaya kama, it means that nothing missing in a sugya is just part of our discussion. It means that you need both and how it works. So he said lo mibaya, you have not issue here, while asu la tachtona velo asu la elyona da asire, if they make the partition for the lower and not to the higher, that then it's prohibited to use for both. Bekevan de bego asara dahadade kaimin asre ahadade, because it is within the domain less than 10 hand breadth between the two, So they forbid to each other. אלא, אפילו עשו מחיצה לעליונה ולא עשו לתחתונה. Even they make a partition for the highest and not for the lowest. Why? How? And what's the חידוש? What's the idea here? סלקא דעתך אמינא כיוון דלזה בנחת ולזה בקשה. לית ולזה שתשמישו בנחת. Maybe the one part it's hard, the other part it's easy. So maybe we should go by the one like always, that it's easy access to use. Kamash melan, they come and teach us. And that's basically Rashi said is that according to Shmuel, that we go always by the use. So these, the Tana come and teach us, kegon de bego asara kaimin, asran ahadadei. Because they upper and lower balcony are located within 10 hand breadth of each other, the render is prohibited for one another. Because it's considering like it's controlled equally by both in that sense. And you cannot carry from one another until you make the Eruv there. Next, illustration 285. Everyone see it?
Yes.
285. כי הדאמר רב נחמן אמר שמואל, גג הסמוך לרשות הרבים צריך סולם קבוע להתירו. When you have a roof and you have that roof is adjacent to a public domain, there must be a fixed ladder from the courtyard to the roof to permit the use of the roof to the resident of the courtyard. And he said, Sulam kavua ein, sulam arai lo. They want to distinguish here that permanent ladder, yes. Something that is temporary, no. So it means because if it's temporary, they can remove it. So therefore, it's like use all the week alone, so you cannot carry it on Shabbat. My tama, why we need someone like that the owner can use that roof part. And remember, this is a 10 hand breadth here to the lower part. So it said, Lav mishum de kivan betoch asara da'adade kami asta na'adade. It's not because you see this 10 hand breadth. So he said it's because this balcony, if you look carefully, you see that the balcony is within the 10 hand breadth. So what happened to that balcony? It's connected, but it's below, it's within the 10 hand breadth. Okay? So
Okay.
because of that, so they prohibited to both the roof and the other. So yes, Rashi explained that the mirpeset has a valid partition, okay, but the entrance between the balcony to public domain doesn't have the 10 cubit, because if it's open, it's like Carmelite, and therefore you cannot carry between her and the roof that it's a private domain. Even you have this ladder. Now, not everyone go. The Tosfot here have a lot to say, and the Rashba and Ritva explain that the whole idea of being attached to a public domain, it created the issue here. So they said that's the idea, because he's not going to move this ladder. So you see the sensitive issues? It's within the 10 hand breadth. This is a private domain. This is a permanent. And that's the aliyah. So the Gemara asks, Matkif la Rav Papa, Vedilma, you see this is the picture 286. Rav Papa asked, maybe we talk about שרבים מחטפין עליו בחומתה וסודרה. So maybe there are many people place the hats and the shawls when they are need for rest. Which means even people in the public domain, they putting their stuff there. You see the hat, the shawl, the things. You see how convenient it is for people to do it?
Yes.
So he said, this is the place that people get used to use. People walk in the public domain, use it. Either it's very hot, so they take off their hats, or they take off light things that they carry. And because it's a use, it's a tashmish. So basically the people in the public domain forbids this roof, the owner, and it's not because the balcony it's within the 10 handbrake. That's not the reason. It's because that's the main use for them. That's the way they use it. So we don't have a proof that either way. So in short, no compelling proof we have found for either for Rav's opinion or for Shmuel's opinion. So we're still stuck. Another source that they use in a rare occasion, they said, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, page 85, בור שבין שתי חצרות, if you have this type of citron and it's between two courtyard, okay, מופלגת מכותל זה 4 ומכותל זה 4, for each wall it's a distance separated by 4 handbreadth from the wall of the courtyard and 4 handbreadth from the wall of the other courtyard. זה מוציא זיז כלשהו ממלא וזה מזיז כלשהו ממלא. Each one of them pull out, extend a ledge of minimal size and fill it, and the other and filled it. ורב יהודה דידי אמר אפילו קניה. Rav Yehuda said that an actual ledge is necessary. He says even if one extend a simple reed, it's called in Ivrit knesuf, that you hardly see it. You can use it by drawing water from that window. Even it's made of a reed. אמר לי אביי לרב יוסף, דרב יהודה דשמואלי. What Rav Yehuda said is follow the teaching of Shmuel. So, and he explained, דרב האמר אין אדם אוסר על חברו דרך אוויר. So he said this has to go by Shmuel, because if you go by the other, by the Rav, it's a problem, because one person he hold does not render it prohibited and another person's perform an action by the way of the air. So if it's a 4 handbreadth, it's basically it's a way only toward the air. So consequently, not even a reed is required. So they said, "V'deshmuel meheicha." So where we learn that this is Shmuel, Ilem Amad Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel Gaga Samuch L'Reshut Harabim Tzach Sulam Kavo Latiro Dilma Kerav Papa. So if you tell me that it's the way that Rav Nachman said that if you have a roof that it's a very close, is adjunct to a public domain, so you have to have a fixed ladder from the courtyard to the roof in order to permit the use for the roof for the residents of the courtyard. So basically, this halacha can be understood by the opinion of Rav Papa. So you're dealing with the roof. The people have in the public domain place their hats and shawls when it's need to rest. That it the halacha does not involve the use of the airspace at all. Now we're going to so you have to say Ela. That's the conclusion. Meha. You have to go by this one. That's the picture number 288. זה מוציא זיז כלשהו ממלא, וזה מוציא זיז כלשהו ממלא, תמה דאפק, על האפק, אמרין אדם אוסר על חברו דרך אוויר. So, you have to go by the idea that each of them pull something, extend the ledge minimum of side and draw water in each way. So therefore, you have to say that a person, one person rendered it prohibited for another person by the way of the air between them. So one resident will be prohibited to draw water from the cistern due to the other resident who has equal access to the water in the cistern by the way of the air. Now we're going to practical halachot. The first halacha is a Rambam Sefer Zmanim Ilchot Eiruvin chapter 4, halacha 18. בור שבחצר, a cistern in a courtyard. If you have a cistern in a courtyard full of water, is located 10 handbreadth above the floor of the courtyard and near the balcony. The resident of both the balcony and the courtyard are prohibited to make use of it. If it's full of non-tight produce like tevel or anything else that may not be moved on Shabbat, it may be used by the resident of courtyard, since it's not reduced the amount you have there. Another halacha is ktalim vezizim. When you have this called ziz, like a ledge, and you have a wall. If the residents of a courtyard and the resident of the upper story did not establish Eruv together, any ledged position within the 10 handbreadth of the ground are available exclusively to the inhabitants of the courtyard. Ledges within 10 handbreadth of the upper story, within the 10 breadth of the upper story. Everybody see it?
Yes.
May be utilized exclusively by the inhabitants of the upper story only. Any ledges in the middle are prohibited to both groups. That's Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 375.
See